Hello there! Welcome to the Throne of Thunder Looking for Raid guide. My name is Tuskeh, and in this video we will discuss Wing 2 of the Throne of Thunder, the Forgotten Depths. We'll cover everything from trash to the bosses and how to handle them. Role-specific information will also be included. This is a 3-boss wing, and every boss has a chance to drop a Sigil of Power, a Sigil of Wisdom, or a Secrets of the Empire for your legendary questline. Just to clarify, this video is not a substitute for a detailed boss-specific guide. This is more of an overview, designed to get you up to speed with the bosses you'll be facing, so that you're ready to complete the wing and keep up with the others in your pug. It should do just fine for LFR. Now, as always, the best thing to be in an LFR is patient. People are going to ignore mechanics, stand in the fire, and generally be ignorant, so it's important that you do things right to help the raid run as smoothly as it can. Now, let's get started. There are only 3 trash packs before the first boss. The first is a group of small bats whose only ability is a passive lifesteal if they hit someone with low health, so try to keep them tanked as the group AoEs them down. The next 2 packs are a mixture of small cave bats and larger ones. The large ones do an AoE called Sonic Screech, which silences the raid for 2 seconds. This can be interrupted and they can be stunned and CC'd. If you can CC 1 or 2 before a pull, it makes things very smooth, but it's not 100% necessary. On to the first boss, Tortoise. This fight revolves around careful ad management and a unique mechanic involving kicking turtle shells into the boss to prevent him from using his most damaging attack. Before we get into that though, let's quickly go over what he does to the tanks. There's no tank swap mechanic in this fight. His only tank related ability is Snapping Bite, which deals a chunk of damage to the tank. It leaves no debuff on them, meaning that you'll need 1 tank on Tortoise full time and 1 on the ads full time. Good AoE tanks are very strong for picking up the ads. These little ads are the small bats that you fought earlier. They're a little nasty during this fight, but they do exactly the same thing. Drain life if the target is on low health. It's important that the healers keep the tanks nice and high to prevent the bats from healing, and the ranged DPS can AoE these down nice and fast. This ad tank will focus entirely on picking up these vampiric cave bats, as a lot of them spawn at once and they fly down from the ceiling, meaning that they can land directly on top of a healer and kill them instantly without quick reactions from the tank. Now, throughout the fight, Tortoise will call whirl turtles into the fight. They spin through his legs and into the room. These ads cannot be tanked, and all they do is spin around the room, knocking up anyone they come into contact with. They can be slowed and rooted, so make sure you do this to keep them under control. Ranged, you'll want to focus these down as soon as you can. Once the whirl turtle reaches 1 health, it'll hide in its shell, stop moving, and become immune to damage for the rest of the fight. But it can now be kicked by going near it, targeting it, and then using your extra action button. Doing so will launch the turtle forwards as if you just kicked a ball. This will interrupt Tortoise if the turtle hits him and increase the damage he takes for 20 seconds. This can be important as Tortoise has a Fury bar. When it reaches full, he'll use Furious Stone Breath to deal very heavy damage to the raid. This can be healed through on LFR, but it can be stopped if someone kicks a turtle at him during the lengthy cast or during the channel. For this reason, it can be very helpful to assign a ranged DPSer to kicking duty. If you're not assigned to kicking duty, or if you see someone else performing the job very well, don't go kicking turtles around. Kicking turtles isn't essential on this fight in LFR, but it helps the healers a lot. Another ability that Tortoise has that cannot be interrupted is called Rockfall. Throughout the fight, blue circles will periodically appear on the ground, signalling the falling of a stalactite from the ceiling. When it lands, it deals damage around it and does a larger but much less damaging AoE in its area. Tortoise will speed this process up when he uses an ability called Quake Stomp. This is a short cast that will deal a third of the raid's health, stun everyone for a couple of seconds, and summon a hell of a lot of rock falls. It's important that once a Quake Stomp comes in, you start moving to avoid the inevitable rock falls that will spawn under your feet. That's pretty much this fight. 1 tank on Tortoise, 1 on the vampiric cave bat ads. Ranged AoE the bats down, melee stay on Tortoise full time. Kill the whirl turtles as soon as you can with slows and roots to help. Avoid getting knocked into the air by them. Kick the turtles at Tortoise to prevent heavy raid damage. Avoid the blue circles. You can bloodlust on the pull. Healers, this fight can be very bursty, as if a Furious Stone Breath channels to its full duration, the raid can take a lot of sudden damage. Strong cooldowns here will help a lot. If someone gets hit by a Quake Stomp and then several rock falls, they can get very low very fast. Single target high healing can be important here to keep people alive. Once Tortoise is dead, it's onto a large cavern crawling with trash. This place can be horrible if the group doesn't know what it's doing, and it's up to the tanks to keep a close eye on the raid and what they may, and unfortunately probably will, accidentally aggro. The whole idea behind this cavern is that at the end of it is the next boss, but she's asleep, and you have to wake her up. To do so, you have to ring 3 bells positioned around the walls of the cavern. Each bell is protected by a Mogu Eternal Guardian, and there are multiple other enemies in this cavern. The Shale Stalkers are small trash that randomly dot the raid. The Cavern Burrowers appear from the ground and will alert other Shale Stalkers to the raid's presence using Sonic Call. This is a cast that can be interrupted. The Mist Lurkers will randomly incapacitate players for long periods of time. This can't really be stopped, so just work through it. The Fungal Growths will put a Dispellable debuff on players that will AoE the raid, dispel it as soon as you can. The Eternal Guardians will put a Dispellable stun on players called Eternal Prison, and do a large, interruptible AoE called Lightning Nova. Once the Eternal Guardian is dead, you can right-click on the bell it was guarding to ring it. It's generally a good idea to follow the path you see on screen. Remember that as a tank you are very important here. It's often a good idea to have one tank lead the group and another near the back of the raid to pick up any enemies that stragglers accidentally aggro. It's important not to get split up in this area. Once the 3 bells are rung, it's on to Megaera. Make sure you kill the trash pack just behind you first, or you may end up aggroing it mid-fight. This fight is all about killing Megaera's heads. She's a Hydra, and doing so will take off about 1/6 of her health. There are 3 kinds of heads here: red flaming heads, blue frozen heads, and green venomous heads. First, for the tanks. All kinds of head have a breath attack that you should aim away from the raid. Face them as far away from the group as you can. The red head puts a dot on the tank, the blue one will stack up a debuff that will stun up to 5 stacks, and the green head increases all damage taken by 5% per stack. Each time you kill one of Megaera's heads, it will reappear in the back of the room, far away from the raid, and assault them with new abilities. Additionally, all heads of the same colour will deal more damage, so the fight gets nastier the further into it you get. On LFR there will always be 2 heads available for attack, one in the middle and one to the side of it. Just note that they cannot be moved. Most raids will go with the strategy of never killing the blue head that starts in the middle. This way they can avoid a lot of its mechanics, which can prove to be quite nasty. Start off by killing the green head to the right of the blue head. Once it dies, the raid should move over to the left of the blue head and prepare for the intermission phase. Tanks, now is a great time to swap. Whoever was on the blue head goes with the raid to pick up the new head, and whoever was tanking the non-blue head goes to pick up the blue head, so that the tanks never end up getting stunned by the blue head's breath. During the intermission phase, all heads will become untankable and start barraging the raid with heavy damage with a spell called Rampage. This will deal pretty hefty raid damage, but it won't hurt too much at first. The thing is, the more heads the raid kills, the more that will spawn, and the more will use this spell, and the more damage the raid will take. This lasts about 20 seconds. Once the rampage ends, the fight continues. Kill the red head this time. Now, however, the green head that you killed will be in the back of the room and will use Acid Rain. This launches a bolt of acid that creates a swirling area near the raid that signals its landing point, and will deal heavy damage when it arrives to everyone in the raid, with the damage decreasing the further away from the explosion you are. This isn't fatal regardless of where you stand, but healers keep in mind that people's health will chunk a bit here. Once the red head is dead, the raid moves over to the green head's area, Megaera rampages for 20 seconds and deals raid damage, then the fight continues. The green head in the back of the room will continue using Acid Rain, and now the red head will be in the back of the room as well, using Cinder on a random player. This creates a dispellable debuff that deals damage to the player, but when it's dispelled, it will create a fiery patch on the ground. If you have this debuff, try to move out of the raid and wait for a dispel. If you're a healer, keep an eye on where the player is before dispelling them. Boss mods will generally mark this player. That's all the mechanics you'll need to worry about, but if your raid does decide to kill the blue head, remember that when it's in the back of the room it will use Torrent of Ice and chase a random player with a laser beam, kite it out of the raid as it leaves a trail of damaging ice behind it. Repeat the process described above until you win. One tank on the blue head, one on the non-blue head. The raid kills the non-blue head while avoiding Acid Rain and moving away if they have cinders. The raid moves from one side of the blue head to the other. The tanks swap. The healers keep the raid alive through the rampage. Later rampages will be much better with raid cooldowns. Bloodlust on the 5th or 6th head. Once you cut off around 6 or 7 heads, you win the fight. Moving on. In keeping with the rest of the trash in this wing, the trash up to the last boss is a nightmare. Go through the pipe, remembering to not get separated if someone aggroes an enemy from the caverns, and move as a raid. There are a whole bunch of things on the floor here. Glowing bones, spiderwebs, and clouds of gas. If someone stands on the bones, they spawn a worm, and if someone stands on the spiderwebs, they spawn, you guessed it, a giant spider. The spiders have a conal stun attack, so face them away from the raid. The gas clouds just deal damage if you stand in them. There'll also be bowfly swarms which deal raid damage. Nuke them down nice and fast. Weave your way through the bones and the spiderwebs and onto the gastropod. This is the infamous snail mini-boss. All it really does is fixate on a random player and slowly move towards them, leaving behind a damaging trail as it goes. If it gets within a few yards of any player, regardless of whether they're fixated or not, it will instantly kill them. Melee, just don't go near this thing. No one go near this thing. Ranged, just nuke it down. Up the stairs, there's another one. Kite it down the stairs and let the ranged kill it. There's another bowfly swarm up the stairs here. You have to jump down to reach them if you're melee, but once they're dead you can jump back onto the stairs or fall down and go around to reach the raid. Remember not to stand on bones or webs. At the top of the stairs there's another gastropod and another one around the corner, along with more bowfly swarms. Kill them all and along with any spiders or worms that you may have accidentally aggroed, and then move to the edge of the balcony to get thrown down to the boss area. G-Kun is the last boss of this wing, and revolves around creating a team of players to handle the birds' nests to prevent nasty ads from joining the fight. Before the battle begins, assign a group of 3 or 4 players to the nests. This must consist of 1 healer, and the rest can be DPSs. Their job will be to move around the room and kill smaller birds, then stealing their feathers to fly to other nests. Before we get into that though, let's talk about the tanks quickly. G-Kun will apply a stacking dot with each melee hit and use Talon Rake, a heavily damaging ability that increases in damage by 50% for each application. Swap on about 2 stacks of Talon Rake. G-Kun will always remain in the centre of her platform. Now the nests. Throughout the fight, G-Kun will use Feed Young to spit food at various nests, signalling which nest it is with a large red aura. What happens in the nest changes depending on its location. If it's a lower nest, then eggs will spawn that instantly hatch into hatchlings that the nest team need to kill. If it's an upper nest, then the eggs will hatch very slowly, but will spawn full juveniles that will immediately fly out of range of the raid and start doing raid damage. If you have no nest team, then the hatchlings on the lower nests will turn into juveniles and do the same thing after a short cast in which they eat food. The first nest is always to the right of the raid, and the nest team can start here. Don't worry about falling. If you fall into the abyss, you'll be stunned and thrown back onto G-Kun's platform. This is more of an annoyance than anything else. The hatchlings on the lower nests do nothing but feed. Killing them before they finish feeding is important. Once they die, they'll drop a feather that you can absorb by running over it. This will give you an extra action button that allows you to fly for 10 seconds, and comes with 4 charges. Once you have this, fly up to the main platform, damaging G-Kun a little bit, then use the wings to fly over to the next nest. Locating the right nest is important. Look for the large red aura around them. If you run out of wings, remember that you can just drop down onto the lower nests without them. Now, onto G-Kun's abilities. Other than the tank swap, G-Kun will keep the rest of the raid very busy. Throughout the fight, she'll use Feed Young. This not only activates the nests by launching food at them, but some of the runoff will land on her main platform, creating permanent green slime puddles. If a player stands in these, they take damage, but if they stand in one for 3 seconds, it despawns it and increases the damage the player takes from other pools by 10%, which will stack. G-Kun will also use Core, which will launch sonic projectiles at ranged raid members. These do a very large AoE when they reach their location. For this reason, players should be spread out around the platform to prevent the cores from overlapping. Note that if you move as she starts casting Core, you can move out of the range of the AoE of a projectile aimed at you. This can deal very heavy damage if more than one core hits a single player. Spreading out is important. More fun for the healers? Quills! This is a channeled spell that G-Kun will perform, spinning around and throwing quills at every raid member for heavy damage. This, unlike her Feed Young pools and cores, will hit players in the nest group. This is why a healer goes with the nest groups to keep them alive. Raid cooldowns work very nicely with quills. Finally, G-Kun will use Downdraft. She'll start to rapidly push every single player on her platform away from her. If you fall, you'll get stunned and thrown back onto the platform. This can really screw with the raid if multiple people get launched off of the platform, especially the tanks. Make sure you keep an eye on timers to check for when Downdraft is about to start, and start as close as you can to G-Kun to give yourself time. Run against the Downdraft to slow the pushing effect, and use movement abilities to keep yourself from being pushed off. Note that there are 4 sections of the platform that are longer than the rest, giving you more room to work with. Try to not get pushed through the slime pools. And that is the fight. The nest team has to know what they're doing and rapidly kill birds in the red glowing nests to prevent adds from spawning. And they have to use their wings to move between lower nests and onto the upper nests as well. Avoid slime puddles, but stand in one for a few seconds to despawn it if there are a lot of them. Spread out and try to avoid cores. Move against the downdraft to avoid getting knocked off the platform. AoE heal the quills. Tank swap on 2 stacks of Talonrake. Bloodlust on the pull and you'll be good to go. Once G-Kun is dead, you've completed the wing. Congratulations. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you have any thoughts, make sure to leave a comment below and like or dislike the video. I'm always after feedback, so let me know what you think. You can contact me using the links in the description, or just leave a comment. Make sure you subscribe to catch my videos as soon as they come out. Thank you very much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck with your loot in the Throne of Thunder. Megara. Seriously, screw Mr. Pandaria. The next expansion better be in England. Like, Blarney, the Lord of Chips. Blarney. That would be easy to say.